Welcome, Valpo fans, to Valpo Basketball Weekly, brought to you by Lakeshore Bone Joint Institute. I'm Aaron Levitt. Joining me today, the head coach of the Valpo women's basketball program, Courtney Boyd. Coach Boyd, thanks for joining me today.
You bet. I'm excited to be here.
We'll get into the recent on-court action in a minute, but I want to first rewind. Ended up you had exactly a 7 month stretch between the day your hire was announced on April 4th and your first regular season game on November 4th. And I just want to start out with what has it been like for you putting together a program from the ground up over that time?
I think you said it. I think we started from literally the ground up. I think the most important piece of what we tried to do was start with the culture. And that was a risk we were willing to take. So once I was able to wrap my brain around, where I was living and how I was going to stay in Valpo, instead of going back and forth until we got settled, the coaching staff was the most important. And so I talked to the coaches that I've had with me in the past. They said yes. So then we, put a couple pieces together. We started out, and the first thing we needed to figure out was what do we have returning? What do we have returning in? I believe it was 6 or 7 workouts. And so we had to make some decisions. Do we have a point guard? Do we have a post player? Can we score? Who can play defense? And again, in a short amount of time, when you're not playing up and down because there's not enough people, you make your best judgment. And so what we decided was we needed a little bit more size. We needed some versatility in getting downhill and shooting the three and different things like that. So we started the process. We knew that we had a handful of returners from last year, and we had 2 freshmen that were staying that were committed, which was fantastic. We love freshmen, and so we've gotten lucky with what we had that was already here. So we got into the portal. We knew we needed size. We went after that first, and then we went after, what type of player do we not feel like we have on the roster? And we finished it out. We ended up with 16 players, and they all have a little bit different game to them. And the hardest part is trying to get them all to mesh and to understand that yes, you played a different style of game in high school or at your last institution or whatever growing up. But now it's time to play at Valpo, and it's time to play Valpo women's basketball instead of whatever else you're used to on an individual basis. And so building that and putting all of those things into place, I think that's been the most challenging, but almost also the most rewarding watching the growth that they've made, regardless of what the final score has said in the last, couple of days.
Yeah, you finally got on the court against someone other than yourself last month for a close scrimmage and an exhibition. You've got 2 regular season games under your belt at DePaul and Detroit, and obviously the results haven't been where you want them so far. What have you and your staff taken away from those 2 games? Obviously, there's no magic pill, but areas where simple adjustments can be made to give the team a better chance of success.
Yeah, there is no magic pill, and patience is one of the things that I continue to tell our staff. At any given time, we want to completely change everything we've done. We're only 2 regular season games in. We can't do that. We've got to give it a chance. But the little things that we've noticed, we're 12 rebounds ahead of where the team was last year, regardless of what the rebound margin says. I think we're around 6 rebound differential with the 2 teams that we've played, and last year it was double digits. So I want to be a rebounding team. I think we've made big strides there. Offensively, we haven't been able to get as big as good of a flow, I would say, because our defense isn't where we want it to be. If we aren't getting stops, it's hard for us to get into our transition. And when we allow the other team to score, then they're able to pressure us. They slow us down, and it turns into a little bit more one-on-one than we would like. So I think the magic pill right now is we have to buy into defense, and our defense has to jumpstart our offense instead of vice versa. We've been relying on our offense the last 2 games, and when we go in, 2 to 3 minute droughts of scoring, we have to be able to get a stop, and we have to get our momentum from that. And so that's really what we've been focusing on top of getting out of our own way. We're going to miss shots. We're not going to hold teams to 0 points. We're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time defensively. But how do we fix it? And how quickly can we bounce back to whatever's next is really what we're trying to focus on. And yesterday I walked away from practice. I felt pretty good about that.
Looking at a couple players who've stood out early on this season. First, Fiona Connolly, someone who's transitioned from more of a secondary role last year into being more of an alpha this year. New career highs in scoring in each of the first two games this year and a career high in rebounds at Detroit as well. How have you seen her adjust to taking on a greater role within the team this year?
She's got a little bit different pressure on her. Her expectation is different. And like you said, last year she had a more of a secondary role. And maybe in the past she's always had a secondary role. But where we are with our team and her being an upperclassman and probably playing some of the most Division I minutes, she needs to step into that alpha role. And so far she's done a really good job. We talk shot selection a decent amount with her. Her and I just had a quick conversation yesterday after practice about, do you feel like I'm shooting too many, or is it time and score, or what can I do a little bit differently? So she's open to those conversations. We've had really hard conversations with her as well, putting her in those challenging situations. But I do think that her game fits into our system. It's the little adjustments that we're breaking habits, and she's a senior, so she's been doing it for, who knows how long. And so once we get to where she feels a little bit more comfortable with where her teammates are going to be and the decisions they're going to make, I think it's going to allow her to open up her game a little bit more, especially the more that she gets scouted.
Freshman Allia von Schlegel, someone who had signed with Valpo before you got the job. She chose to stick with the program and strong start to her career, 5 of 7 from three over her first two games, had 10 points at Detroit. Is this the kind of role you envision for her after getting to know her game?
It was a little bittersweet with Alia when I was still at Quincy because we had conversations and I wanted her really bad. And so when she decided to come to Valpo, my feelings were a little bit hurt. So it ended up actually being great. We thought she was a great player. We thought it would have been a steal if we got her, at Quincy. And so now being here and being able to, I mean, luck is kind of a crazy thing, but being able to coach her under different circumstances and against different competition, this is exactly what I thought that she was capable of. Did I think that it was going to happen this early? I can't lie about that. Freshmen are freshmen, and so how quickly do they adjust? But she's super talented. She understands the game. She's got a little chip on her shoulder. And for a freshman, I'm really happy with what she's done in the first two games coming out of the gate.
Well, the third game doesn't make it any easier on you guys as you had to take on a nationally ranked Iowa State team. And obviously, you go into any game, whoever you're playing to win the game. But when you go into a matchup where you're going to be an underdog like this, is it as much about trying to hit your team goals you have as a squad, whether you're playing a top 20 team or a non D1 team?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I've always been the team. I've always been the team or wanted to be the team, and definitely the coaching staff that focuses on us. 2 days before a game, a lot of teams are focusing on what their opponent's going to do. It doesn't matter to us whether it's the top 15 team in the nation or the last team in the nation. We are important, and the reason we're important is because the things that we can control and the things that we can practice consistently are our rotations defensively. How are we going to distribute the basketball? What type of shots are we going to get? When we come out of a timeout, how are we going to execute? And so we do have personal goals. We have rebounding goals. We have extra possession goals. We have three stops in a row goals. I mean, all of those things. And it's the same of what a lot of teams do. It's just how those things affect us. I was having a conversation earlier, and I think how those things affect us are really important because if we can do it against, Iowa State, then we should be able to execute that against another team in the nation that's not number 15. And I'm not taking anything away from a team not being as good, but if we can do it against a team and we can do it at a decent amount, then why can't we do it consistently in January in the middle of conference? And so that's what we're trying to look at is the big picture. So yeah, those small team goals and those individual offense or defense goals are definitely things that we're going to focus on going into tomorrow.
Matchup at the number 16 Cyclones Wednesday evening, 6:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And then the home opener at the Arc Sunday against Milwaukee at 4 p.m. Coach Boyd, best of luck in these upcoming games.
Thanks so much, Aaron.
This has been Valpo Basketball Weekly, brought to you by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.